Police are investigating the mysterious disappearance of a group of young Vietnamese exchange students.
The bizarre disappearance of the 4 students is being investigated by police.
A major crackdown on those abusing Australia's migration system has been unveiled by the federal government.
Hi everyone and welcome to another obscure Asian story. In the heart of Australia's Adelaide, a perplexing phenomenon has unfolded. Vietnamese exchange students are mysteriously disappearing. Over the past few weeks, this vibrant city has become a hotbed of intrigue, with 5 students vanishing into thin air within a mere 5 months. Their host families, bewildered and concerned, grapple with the enigma. The local police, too, find themselves piecing together a puzzle, one where each missing student represents a separate chapter in this perplexing saga. All teenagers disappeared at different times in December and January, and each case is actually treated as a separate incident. Sunny Ngyuen, a 17-year-old Year 11 student, epitomizes this mystery. Shy and grappling with English, she vanished after sharing dinner with their host family on a fateful January evening. Her phone disconnected, her social media accounts wiped. Her absence echoes through the halls of Hamilton Secondary College, where she had come to study. As the investigation unfolds, Adelaide holds its breath, wondering what secrets lie hidden in the shadows. Why have these young souls slipped away, leaving behind unanswered questions? The city buzzes with speculation, and the missing student stories intertwine. A tapestry of uncertainty that captivates hearts and minds alike. So what exactly happened to Sunny Ngyuen? Sunny Ngyuen arrived in Australia on a student visa to study at Hamilton High School. She resided with the host family in the South Plimpton area, a suburb of Adelaide City, along with 2 other international students. Her daily routine involves attending school, returning home for dinner, creating videos with her roommates, and occasionally working part-time at a nail salon located 15 kilometers from school. However, on January 8, after having dinner with her host family, Sunny disappeared. She left with a backpack containing her laptop, essential documents, and clothes. Her phone has been turned off, and her social media accounts were deleted. When her host family noticed her missing, they promptly tried to contact her, but were not able to connect. The Servas family reported her missing at 11:30 p.m., but since then, they have not received any communication regarding her whereabouts.
I hope she's okay. I'm just worried for her because her English is not that good.
Despite having 3 years left on her study visa, Sunny seemed content and had no apparent reason to run away or hide. The family is concerned because her English skills are not strong, and they fear she may struggle alone. Interestingly, she left behind most of her belongings, including multiple bags, but took only one. Her 2 pairs of shoes were missing, yet her wardrobe and dresser still contained her clothes. Sunny carried her laptop and passport, which serve as valid identification, but left behind all other items, including her medication.
Sunny's homestay family have told police that...
On January 11th this year, the police announced that Sunny became the 5th in a string of inexplicable disappearances, casting an eerie shadow over the community. The police also revealed that these 5 cases appear to be unrelated, yet one person has been found. On January 18th, the South Australian Department of Education steps into the spotlight, answering questions from the Thanh Nien magazine. The revelation: the missing Vietnamese students have actually slipped away from their host families' homes through their own accord. The Australian Education Agency reached out to the students' families.
This is concerning for all involved, and we would ask the students to make contact with the police to ensure their well-being.
On January 29th, first theories were revealed. The South Australian police unveiled that they believed the teenagers to actively avoiding authorities. As they didn't find any signs of forced entries, they also saw no imminent danger. No smoking guns, no ticking clocks. Across state lines, police collaborate to find any clue on the missing youth. Sunny herself was known to frequent Adelaide streets, CBD, Marion, and South Plimpton. Perhaps it's a teenage escapade, school holidays conspiring to whisk them away, secrets shared only among the young.
I hope that this is the case of because of school holiday, kids 17 years old want to get together.
Local community leaders hope that the students simply went on an interstate trip just to be carefree 70-year-olds. Families in Vietnam also appeared unfazed about the students' welfare. So, in the end, all that was found was a web of intrigue but no threads connecting them. Except for the host families, no one seems to show any concern. But how can that be? Every year, hundreds of Vietnamese students come to Adelaide, the sun-kissed capital of South Australia. They are welcomed by their host family community and receive dedicated guidance from school staff. In 2023 alone, approximately 430 Vietnamese international students will be studying at the South Australian public schools through international education programs. However, recent events have raised concerns. The disappearance of several Vietnamese students from central provinces has left many unsettled. The South Australian Department of Education has temporarily stopped accepting applications from students in these provinces after reviewing the circumstances of international students who left their boarding houses without permission. In light of the recent news, it's deeply unsettling to consider the various dreadful scenarios. One can't help but fear that this might just be the beginning of a larger issue involving criminal gangs engaged in grooming or trafficking. It's well documented that these criminal networks often prey on young, vulnerable individuals. Australia, unlike some other countries, has stringent immigration policies. The students in question are legally studying in South Australia, which makes them less susceptible to typical trafficking scenarios. Traffickers often exploit vulnerable individuals arriving on tourist visas, forcing them into illegal activities and threatening their families. However, these Vietnamese students are here legally, and their families' identities remain unknown. Consequently, it would be challenging for traffickers to manipulate them in the same way. Moreover, the students have access to support networks and authorities, making it difficult to keep them in the shadow. Nonetheless, human trafficking cannot be ruled out. Human trafficking is a pressing issue in Australia, and recent data highlights its alarming rise. The Australian Federal Police received 340 reports of offences related to human trafficking during the 2022 and 2003 financial year. These offences encompass forced marriage, sexual servitude, and other exploitative practices. It's crucial to recognize that human trafficking is often underreported. Victims may feel ashamed or confused, which perpetrators exploit to maintain their silence. Identifying signs of trafficking is essential. The AFP themselves gave the following signs to pay attention to. If a victim appears under someone else's control and often avoids interactions with others, if they cannot produce any kind of personal identification documents, if they show any kind of physical or psychological abuse, appear frightened and withdrawn, if they have no control over their assets, and if they appear to be under constant surveillance. Australia itself already announced that they want to confront the growing number of human trafficking. Recent revelations expose rampant visa fraud, enabling grotesque abuse of temporary migrants. These vulnerable individuals face sexual exploitation and human smuggling orchestrated by criminal gangs. Consequences are dire. Roughly 15,000 people endure slave-like conditions in Australia, according to estimates by the International Labour Organization and human rights activists. Beyond sex trafficking, forced marriages, factory workers, cafe staff, and cleaners suffer silently. False asylum claims allow applications to linger on temporary visas for a decade while their cases remain unresolved. The very international education programs that Vietnamese students used, which welcome foreign students to study in Australia and unwittingly provide fertile ground for immigration and visa fraud. And rescuing victims is an uphill battle. Often they must emerge from the shadows voluntarily. The Australian government's success in halting human trafficking remains rare. Typically, intervention occurs before victims even set foot in the country, but success within the scene is rare, but not impossible. Last year, for example, officials intercepted nearly 24 women at the border, suspected of being sex trafficked into Australia. A crackdown on organized criminal syndicates exploiting the visa system led to this crucial intervention. The Australian Border Force now targets over 175 individuals, both domestically and overseas. Notably, intelligence from law enforcement agencies suggested that not all were entering Australia against their will. The women in question came from Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan, Indonesia, China, Japan, Cambodia, and South Korea. They were denied entry because authorities believed they planned to work illegally, breaking their visa rules. Most of these women were stopped in Sydney and Cairns. This scheme has been going on for years, as global human trafficking networks exploit weaknesses in Australia's border security and immigration system to run illegal sex rings. Countries like Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos, and the Philippines are major sources of human trafficking. Myanmar in particular has become a significant source country, especially the ethnic minorities living along Myanmar's borders are often and easily trafficked. The women are also often tracked into China and into Thailand. The geo-economic situation in these countries contribute to human trafficking cases. Poverty, lack of jobs, economic underdevelopment, and poor education all play a major role. In addition, high levels of corruption among government officials and a lack of police training has facilitated trafficking. So that armed conflicts, religious persecution, and racial discrimination. Generally, media attention often centers on sex trafficking in Southeast Asia. The exact number of people trafficked for sexual exploitation varies across organizations. The Global Slavery Index estimates that 30 million individuals were trafficked in the Asia-Pacific region in 2015, with 2.63 million from ASEAN countries. While young women and girls are commonly trafficked, boys are also victims in prostitution rings. Virtual trafficking involving child pornography and exploitation is on the rise in Cambodia, Thailand, and the Philippines. Some fraudulent marriages of women from the region in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea are, in reality, forms of labor and sex trafficking. Human trafficking in Southeast Asia is a significant problem. Even if it does not affect Australia directly, its effects are felt through its connection with other types of forced and irregular migration that do concern Australia. Australia takes a comprehensive approach to combat human trafficking in Asia. The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and the Attorney General's Department engage in capacity-building efforts in Southeast Asia. The Department of Immigration and Border Protection supports anti-trafficking efforts by providing technical assistance and deploying specialized immigration officers in Thailand, China, the Republic of Korea, and the Philippines. There are a few gaps in a regional anti-trafficking system that the Australian government needs to focus on in the near future. The exploitation used networks of licensed migration agents, colleges, and fixers that facilitated visa farms. These have been used by crime syndicate bosses to repeatedly bring fellow syndicate members into Australia.
When I received a tip-off about this story last year, I couldn't believe what I was being told. 12 months of investigating, though, has not only confirmed it, but also established it's much worse than first thought.
A recent case that made headlines and exposed these schemes was made public by the Trafficked investigative series. It exposed Sydney-based crime boss Binjun Xie, known as the Hammer, who entered Australia in 2014 on a student visa. Despite being imprisoned in Britain on similar crimes, he was able to run a national illegal sex racket, moving exploited of foreign women across the country like cattle. His financial records revealed that he sat atop a syndicate trafficking women into and across Australia. His actions revealed major weaknesses in Australia's immigration system and the suffering of victims. Victims claimed they were forced into debt bondage, working to pay off a $200,000 debt in China from the syndicate. All his syndicate members in Britain were effectively prisoners, paid minimally for sexual services, with passports confiscated. Despite lacking physical dominance, Xie controlled Asian sex workers through fear, earning him his tribe nickname, the Hammer. He was able to enter the UK on a student visa while running a migration crime racket. Xie was jailed for 5 years and deported afterwards. After his time behind bars, he was able to enter the Australian on a similar student visa in the late 2014. His criminal activities continued there.
Cases like yours, what you could do is to apply for a protection visa, and then you can get a bridging visa. A bridging visa can be used for about 3 years. Our fee is $2,000.
The investigation exposed the misuse of migration agents and fixers running so-called visa farms that engage in wholesale manipulation of visas, including protection visas reserved for humanitarian reasons.
Sorted is what it looks like. They were there to perform only one thing. To anybody who came and paid it.
Investigator Kevin Forrest, who previously helped jail Xie in England, exposed the harsh conditions faced by Asian women in Xie's brothels. His victims lived in modern slavery, isolated, unable to leave or socialize, solely existing to perform sexual acts. Xie was able to create a vast network. People smuggling rings recruited vulnerable women from East Asia. Once in Australia, women were distributed like cattle to licensed brothels, motels, and other sites along the East Coast. They were made to work up to 25 hours under exploitative conditions. This was all helped by dodgy migration agents in Australia who exploited the system by securing visa extensions. Interviews, covert recordings, and intelligence suggest many workers are exploited or involved in criminal activity. The Federal Police Superintendent Jane Crosling expressed frustration due to the small number of prosecutions. This is mainly due to the fact that obtaining cooperation from fearful victims posed difficulties. Moreover, this visa trend saw an uptick starting in 2014, and neither the Department of Home Affairs nor the former government took adequate action. An estimated 30,000 foreign workers still remain in Australia unlawfully. They form a rapidly expanding permanent underclass, exploited in the sex industry on farms and other jobs. While Australia aims to avoid becoming like the US or Europe in immigration and border security, it faces similar challenges. Suspected criminal networks linked to Binjun Xie have been on law enforcement radar for years, yet they were unable to take appropriate action. However, through the ongoing investigation, the South Australian police uncovered a network of call centers, including one with the 7 Chinese nationals and 190 mobile phones. The call centers and websites promoted the services of Asian sex workers. Most sex workers had little English proficiency and no apparent ties to South Australia. Their presence was tied to paying off debts, and any trouble could harm their families. The investigation also revealed links to organized crime, child pornography, human trafficking, and money laundering across borders. Unfortunately, fear prevented these victims from cooperating with the police, and despite the action taken by the government, the syndicate still operates motels as illegal brothels. If we now return to the vanished Vietnamese students, everything appears to be part of the bigger issue. Without being able to establish contact, we won't know about their well-being. Yes, their family claimed that they don't worry, but we cannot rule out that they might have been sold into shady and demeaning services. We have no way of establishing their condition and if they actually have been trafficked or are just teenagers doing stupid things.
I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time and thanks for watching!